Good afternoon and welcome once again to the latest in our series of MTD Readiness. I'm Andy North, I'm the CMO here at TaxCalc, and as always I'm joined by Dean Shepherd, the Director of Product Compliance and fount of all wisdom around MTD. Today we're going to be focusing on the technology choices that you're going to need to make for MTD for ITSA, and we have not one but two wonderful guests to share their insights on this tricky subject. First of all, we've got John Toon, who's the technology strategy lead at Beever and Struthers, and the multi-award winning Lorraine Ellison is the founder of Simply Editions. Many thanks to you both for joining us this afternoon. As I mentioned, this is part of our ongoing MTD Readiness series. For the new viewers who haven't seen one of our sessions before, I should explain that basically we wanted to create a roadmap that accountants could follow to make sure that they're answering all of the questions that they're going to need to be answering, and some of those are about technology, some aren't. So we convened a Brains Trust, and there they are, to give us their invaluable input, and we took all of that and then created this guide which takes place, originally starts in May, but if you're still haven't started yet you can still get going. So far we have looked at how you define what services that you want to offer and how you can approach the segmentation of your clients, the communication to your clients, and in every single webinar we get questions about technology. Well, that and the 10K threshold, obviously. But technology comes up time and time again. So today we are grasping the nettle, and we're not just looking at the tools that you might use with your clients to do the digital record keeping, but the quarterly submissions, the EOPS, the finalisations, and also the deadline management, the client communication tools that you might be using. So really trying to cover the whole gamut of technology for MTD. Before we start, very quick bit of housekeeping. Yes, we will be sending you a copy of this session after the show, so you don't need to take notes. You can if you like, but you don't need to. We do really love to hear your questions and your comments, and we will be asking you specific questions throughout the session as well. So please post those in the Q&A box because we will see those. There is a chat box as well. You can use that to chat amongst yourselves. We will not necessarily see those during the session. So if you want to talk to us, use the Q&A. If you want to talk to everyone else, then you can use the chat box. Also, we've extended this session, so we are able to run an extra 15 minutes over, depending on how many questions that we get to. We should imagine we'll get quite a few. So, to get started, before we get into the meat of the discussion, I'd like to meet our guests and introduce those in a little bit more detail. So John Toon, if you could tell us a little bit about your firm and the clients that you have and what steps that you've taken to get to MTD ready so far.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, my name's John Toon, work for Beever and Struthers, predominantly based up in the northwest. Our head office is Manchester, top 60 firm, and my role in particular is to look after the digital strategy for our firm. So I sit effectively as a conduit between all of our client-facing departments and our IT department in terms of helping them to modernise and improve the way that they operate and make sure what we do is as streamlined as possible. In terms of where we're at with MTD for ITSA, we've got about 1,200 clients that are going to be affected. We've got a couple of hundred that are probably not going to be over the thresholds, and so we've got a reasonable idea, first of all, of who's affected. I think that's really important, and you'll have covered that on previous sessions. And we've also started on the journey of identifying the solutions that we want to put in place for our clients and how we're going to deal with that in terms of our internal processes and the communications outward with clients.
Fantastic. And you say that the role that you have is relatively new. So you were running a portfolio.
Correct.
And then, so was it MTD that kind of inspired this role, or?
Thank God, no.
No.
So the role was inspired really because we realised as a practice, all accountancy firms, big and small, have a challenge around technology. I think, given that we're a legacy firm as well, we've got a challenge around, how do we move from, a legacy of historic systems which are not particularly well interconnected and bring that into a space where we're obviously using cloud technology and other technologies that are not necessarily traditionally used in the accountancy sector to make our lives as efficient as possible. So that's really the challenge for me, is to try and identify solutions for the practice and make our technology strategy fit with our wider strategy in terms of what we want to do and what we want to achieve going forward into the future.
Fantastic. Okay, so you've got obviously quite a few resources that I imagine some of the viewers today possibly won't have. Lorraine, same question to you. Could you just give us a little introduction to your firm and yourself and the kind of clients that you look after?
Hi, welcome. Yes, I've got a small firm in the northeast of England. You'll be able to tell from the Macam accent, from Sunderland. We've got 230 clients, which is made up of mainly limited companies, the directors. We've got about 30 sole traders and about 12 landlords. And we like everything digital. Started the digital journey in 2013 and just did it bit by bit. And we've got probably about a dozen people left to get back on the digital technology. We've banned all paperwork at the beginning of COVID, just because we had to move out the offices and work from home. So we just decided to finish our digital journey by banning customers bringing paper to us. We have a couple of people have slipped through the net, so they're on our target to sort out. And there's 8 of us in the team, but I'm in charge of onboarding, exiting clients, Facebook, LinkedIn, social media, and our technical journey. And I've used all sorts of things to get you people to come along on that journey. A bit of bribery, a bit of carrot and stick, but we're very happy. And we all work from home now, all digital. So.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, and thanks again for coming along today. Okay, so to get started, I think it's probably worth just looking, to hear from you guys, and also to ask the audience what our main challenges for MTD are. So maybe if you start the poll, Dean, if you would. Get your take on this. And so Lorraine, in terms of the biggest challenge that you have either overcome or have yet to overcome, where are you? What's your view on that?
Probably apathy from clients and trying to nail them down when they're very busy. And from our side, managing multiple deadlines. And that's obviously why we turn to technology to use that.
Right.
The biggest challenges.
Apathy and deadlines. Fine. Okay. And John, what about you? You different perspective or same?
I think we have some similar issues. I mean, I think a lot of clients have expected this deadline to continually get pushed back and pushed back. We certainly experienced that with VAT when that happened. But HMRC have dug their heels in, and we're kind of in this place, so that's good. I think the biggest issue that we found is how do we make some solid choices about the technology that we want to put in front of our clients, and then how do we then communicate that out to our clients? We've got a huge number of clients to communicate to, and you can't just do that through a newsletter or an email or something. So that's the biggest issue for us, I reckon, is getting all of our staff on board with communicating the message that needs to go out to clients. Right.
Okay. So slightly different perspective there. So if you haven't yet, the poll is open now, Dean. Is that right? So.
Yes, that's right. That should have appeared on your screen, but if you don't immediately see it, then we do have a little polls option to the lower right of your screen next to the Q&A and chat options. So just click on that polls link and you should see the poll. And the question we asked is, what's your main MTD for ITSA tech concern right now? So we've had lots of people answer so far. Coming in first, or joint first at the moment, requesting client records. People looking for a technical solution for that. Bridging solution for spreadsheet users is coming in quite high as well. So obviously lots of people on the call still intend to use spreadsheets with their clients come April 24. And in third place, digital solution for my technophobic clients, which I'm sure we're going to be looking at throughout the course of this session today.
It's interesting, no one has yet brought up political instability, but I guess that's because everything's settled down now and we're not.
What political instability? I'm not entirely sure
what political instability? It does come up a lot. We won't be talking about that today, although I expect we'll get one or two questions. Okay, so as we hack through those, a few more seconds until we close the poll. Yeah, it looks like the bridging solution for spreadsheet users has come up the top. So that's probably something that we will be picking up today. Wonderful. So let's get started. So John, let's go to you first. What are you doing in your firm in terms of handling client record keeping? Let's look at that first.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, part of my role, as I mentioned before, is around the digital transformation of our business, and we rolled out my work papers at the beginning of the year for all of our SME departments. So those are the guys that are doing accounts prep, VAT, monthly management accounts, when we had very early discussions about where MTD for ITSA should sit, whether that should be a tax department problem or should it be an SME department problem, it kind of fell on the side that this is going to be something that our SME guys and girls are going to be involved in, and so that rollout of my work papers was not done in anticipation of MTD for ITSA, but it's going to be serendipitous for us because it's going to facilitate being able to keep that record keeping managed in an easy and effective way, and so we're going to be able to track client deadlines, client requirements, and the information that we're requesting. Obviously, off the sort of the front end of that, we're going to have a number of solutions that we're going to feed into my work papers to collect data. So, as I said, we've already identified our solutions. We know where we're going to sit. And interestingly, off the back of that survey, we've already decided we're not going to offer a bridging solution to our clients.
Right. So your clients are all going to be doing, what kind of tools are you using?
So we want to try and keep things as simple as possible, because I think the issue that a lot of accountants, a lot of individuals who are going to be caught by the regulations going to face is there's going to be a huge number of software vendors offering a solution in the market, and the problem with that is you just end up with complete overwhelm. It's going to be a bit like your app store on your phone. You're going to have 500 ways of setting an alarm every morning and stuff, and nobody wants that. So we've gone down the route of we want to offer two solutions for our sole traders and subsequently the partnerships that will be caught, and we want two solutions for our landlords, and then we're going to keep it really, really simple. So we've chosen free agent because it will do both the sole traders, the partnerships in the future, and landlords. We're going to use Hammock as well for our landlords, and we're going to use Zero because we already use Zero and free agent within the practice. So there's an element of familiarity for our teams who are going to be affected by this. There's an element of familiarity with some of our clients who are already going to be affected, and so we can best implement those solutions for our clients because the team are familiar with it. They can communicate with knowledge and experience and expertise with the staff and the clients that are going to be affected by this, and we think that's the most seamless journey. Hammock's probably the only one where we don't have lots of experience in, but we've done quite a lot of work around appraising solutions, and those that are easiest to implement, those are easiest to manage for clients, and that's why we've chosen that product as well.
Okay. Please, for the audience, if you indicate in the question and answer box what you're using, we'd love to hear. We'd love to just get some idea what kind of tools that you've discovered, and what you found, how it's working, if it's working great, if it's not. So, Dean, what do you think about that as a strategy from John?
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that you're pinpointing two options, keeping it quite straightforward and simple, both for your team and your clients. I know in my practice, I did go through the exercise of actually totting up all the different bookkeeping solutions that people used across the client base, and I was quite surprised when I hit 20, because in my mind I had one or two that I recommended and were our strength, but actually clients come to you using whatever applications they've been using, some better than others. Some clients are more familiar with how they work. Do you think you're going to be able to kind of restrict down to two options, or is...
the reality is we will have sole traders, predominantly sole traders. We do have a few landlords who are already using software, but most of those landlords, luckily for us, or at least are on Zero and other products like that. We will have sole traders in particular that are on, say, Sage 50, other products, QuickBooks, etc., that people will be familiar with. And if that's the case, we're not going to mandate that they change to make that work, because we already have the workflows in-house to be able to manage those. Where we're going to make those suggestions is for those businesses that don't have a software solution that's going to be compliant at the moment or compliant in the future to help them on that transformation journey. We do appreciate that businesses will have something potentially in place and they'll be familiar with that, and if they want to stick with that, we're not going to restrict them on that journey. We also think as well is that we've done some work on our numbers, and we kind of think that probably about 70 to 80% of our clients will probably be quite comfortable with us doing the filings and the various other bits of compliance as part of this process. And so if they want us to do that on their behalf, they need to be on a solution that we're familiar with. And we know that the remainder, the sort of 20-30%, will go off and do it on their own. Some will do it fine and it won't be a problem, and they can choose whatever solution they like. But if they come to us with a problem, they're going to be paying premium fees and premium charges for us to go in and fix it, particularly if they're on a solution that we don't recommend.
Right.
So you've taken out Excel as an option.
Yep.
And how's that gone down?
We'll find out, because we haven't communicated that with all of our clients yet. But the reason we've done that is because reading into the rules and regulations. So what's different between MTD for VAT and MTD for ITSA is that with VAT, you know that you can prospectively correct an error in the previous quarter, and you can do that. Whereas with MTD for ITSA, as far as I understand that, correct me if I'm wrong here, but is that if you find a mistake in a submission that's been done one quarter, you actually have to go back and resubmit the same quarter. The issue that we have around Excel is there's a lack of audit trail, and it's going to be really, really challenging, I think, for us as a business, if we were managing this in-house, for us to be able to identify errors when after a submission, and then be able to have a sufficient audit trail that we were comfortable with, that then backs up any changes that we make to go back to a previous submission. Now, as I say, if clients want to use Excel, we won't be doing the submissions for them. We won't be making a recommendation for a bridging solution, so they have to find their own way. And if they fall foul the rules, they'll fall foul the rules and they'll suffer the penalties.
Because we've talked a lot about that at our end. I think it's interesting. But Lorraine, what's your take on that same question? What are you doing, and how's it going?
Well, we only use QuickBooks in Simply Editions, but I recognise that for some sole traders, it's not quite the right solution. So I've got a little side hustle going. I'm setting that up to work with free agents. So it's quite interesting that John's chosen that as well. We're not looking to do a bridging software angle either. For John's reasons as well, there is no audit trail. Who had the last version, that sort of thing. So we do prefer to work with the software. And if any clients are joining us, they've got to have online banking. They've got to link up to the software, so QuickBooks. The only ones we haven't got on are the landlords, and we are also looking at Hammock and the free agent through the side hustle. So it's very much the same sort of approach. It's quite interesting that John's gone through this idea that he will make the choice and the customers have got to pick it from his choice. And we work with that as well. Originally, when we started, we had all the different softwares, and you can't be efficient with it in our view. And we found QuickBooks work best for us. So we're planning on submitting through QuickBooks, but we're looking to use TaxCalc as our primary record holder and our deadline management. So I'm hoping that you're going to produce me a lovely dashboard where I can control all of the deadlines on there.
Well, more on that to come shortly. So interesting. So you're using essentially QuickBooks, Free Agent, and exploring Hammock. Hammock's come up quite a few times, and this seems to be an interesting tool. A lot of people with landlord clients who seem to be very interested in that. So that may be worth a look. I mean, looking at some of the responses that we've had, Xero is reasonably popular. Also, Coconut. People are exploring Coconut as well. Have you guys been looking at that?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Coconut before. Solution based on open banking, very, very similar to Hammock in some ways. So I think it's you make your choices based on what feels best for you.
I've heard it. I've heard about it. I haven't tried it. I haven't looked at it. But there's so much choice out there. It's where do you? So I point others to it, but I'm not planning to use it myself.
Okay, yeah, there seems to be. I'm just looking down at the options here. People have been.
I think just to add to the comments that Lorraine and I made as well is that one of the reasons that I said we're sticking with the solutions that we've got is familiarity, but also every man and his dog, right, is going to have an MTD for ITSA solution. It was less prevalent with VAT, but we're seeing it more and more with ITSA. I know you guys are going to have a solution. CCH can have a solution. Digital having a solution. Everything else. Well. With the best will in the world, my gut feel is those solutions will be a bit crap, and there won't be a huge amount of engagement from customers on coming the other way in terms of getting on board with a solution. So we feel that we want something that's proven in the market, that we're comfortable putting our name behind to get out there, not something that's just been built specifically for solving this task that may not have the greatest bank feeds, might not have the greatest OCR solutions, might not have the greatest user experience and interest in terms of being able to make that process as efficient and as effective as possible.
Indeed, absolutely, and I think that's the key point that keeps coming up over and over again. Is kind of it's much less relevant whether you like it, but if your clients aren't going to use it, then
it's important for us to like it as well because our staff, we want our staff to be doing as much of this filing as possible. So, if we don't like it, if I don't like it, the staff aren't going to like it, right? I'm a pretty good arbiter of what's good and what's usable and effective. And also it's important for us that these products integrate into our wider solutions as well. So it may well be that if you're a TaxCalc only business or you're a CCH only business or something, these solutions might work really well for you, but for us they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Dean, would you like to address some of the questions that are coming through around the spreadsheet issue?
Yeah, and I might quite timely open up the next poll as well, just to get a bit of feedback from everybody attending in terms of how likely you are to use spreadsheets with your MTD clients. John and Lorraine are clearly not very likely to use spreadsheets with their clients. I have to say, for my practice, I think I probably still would use spreadsheets for a lot of clients. I think the clients that I've spent so long educating on how to use a spreadsheet properly, I'm not particularly thrilled at the prospect of teaching them how to use another application properly and going through that process again. But also, I think, as has been highlighted, the landlord problem is a big problem. What are we going to do with these landlord clients that currently don't use any kind of software to record their transactions, probably don't view the fact they've got rental property as being a business? It's all a bit alien. Lots of my property clients would simply send me an email saying, oh, same as last year, Dean. I'd say, thanks for that. I assume your mortgage interest wasn't exactly the same this year as it was last year. Can I at least have that? And trying to get them onto an application, I think will be quite difficult. I've seen Hammock. I love Hammock. I think it's great. There's all kinds of interesting stuff on there, completely outside the realm of MTD and income and expenses. I think it's a really useful tool for landlords, irrespective of MTD. But a lot of my landlords, had a very simple setup. It's a single property owned by one husband and wife. It might be a little bit overkill for them. So I think the jury's out for me, but I think I would certainly have some clients that spreadsheets would be relevant for. But it doesn't matter what I think, Andy.
It doesn't.
Let's see what our attendees think.
So far, leading the pile, we've got more than I do today, and about the same, or about level pegging. So about 50% of people, we've had well over 100 votes. About 50% of people are either doing more or about the same, and then we've got 18% saying not at all. So 20%, none of my MTD clients will be on spreadsheets. So that's kind of what I would have expected, I guess.
Yeah,
not too far off. There is obviously the issue of cost, and there was a comment I noticed from Jody about using Dext and Xero for all clients. Now, imagine the cost of that racking up very quickly. Are you guys using Dext? Are you?
So we're a Dext practice. But I think when it comes to cost, right, don't forget that Excel costs you money. if you want to, so Excel isn't free. We just kind of ignore it because it's a bit of a sunk cost and it's just buried. But even if someone's got it, they're going to be paying £90, £100 a year for that. So put that, for their office, and okay, they get Outlook and they get Word and everything, all the other Office products with it, which may or may not be relevant to them. But there is a cost to Excel, even if it's a sunk cost and you kind of forget about it. So to answer your question, we're a Dex partner. We have been from the very, very early days. We've got a very good relationship and a very good price with them, so we're not too worried about how we scale that for our clients. Will we put Dex in for every single one of our clients? Probably not, because the reality is, talk about landlords, for example, the volume of expenses, the volume of purchases and things is going to be relatively low for those types of clients. So it's not as much of a significant consideration for us. Where it will be relevant will be for, say, some of those sole traders. And we're a practice that likes to talk about technology, and we like to sort of show the benefits of technology. So it's not just technology for technology's sake. It's about how do we make people's lives a little bit more effective, a little bit more efficient. And for the vast majority of sole traders, right, they're going to be doing their own bookkeeping generally. They're going to be spending their time in the evenings and weekends and doing that. So if we can use MTD for ITSA as a catalyst and move them onto software and help them free up their time at the weekend or free up their time in the evenings, whatever it might be, that's going to be a win for me, even if it's a bit of a pain in the backside to begin with, and there's a training element and there's a time spent element in terms of getting across that way, and that's part of our plan. Is we want to communicate early and start moving clients early, so we're not going to be waiting until 2024 to start this journey with clients.
Absolutely. Lorraine, what about yourself?
We're using auto entry for some clients, and we're using the receipt capture for QuickBooks. Right. And obviously Free Agent have got their own as well. So we're not too strict on having a digital copy, a digital receipt. So quite some of our clients we just code the bank up using the bank feed and auto rules, which make it quicker, and we just leave it for the client to keep the digital records or the paper records. But if we've got a landlord and they've had a large repair, we'll ask them for a copy of the bill. Or if we've got a sole trader who's bought something with a capital nature, we'll ask for a copy of the bill that way. So we don't want every single receipt on there. And our first approach is to just get the bank data and analyse it and then follow up on queries. But yes, mainly auto entry or the QuickBooks receipts capture.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Dean, would you like to? We've had a few questions here about the TaxCalc solutions for spreadsheets. We have talked about this before, but do you want to just cover off the business file?
Sure. Yeah, we've had lots of questions just asking us to confirm whether we are producing our own bridging solution for MTD for ITSA, because we do have VAT filer at the moment, our bridging solution for MTD for VAT. And yes, we will. That's well in development now. We've created a demonstration video so you can see exactly how MTD for ITSA clients can be covered with our product. It's called Business Filer. It's going to be on the taxcalc.com/MTD pages of the website, and we're going to get that up in a week or so, a little video demonstration.
We'll send it out with the follow-up video.
Great. But yeah, I mean, it's I would say it's very nearly complete in terms of its development. We had a template to work from with VAT filer, so we've just kind of adjusted it to handle MTD for ITSA. Right. And I mean, another use case that I'd probably use in my practice, not just clients that are using the spreadsheets for the bookkeeping, but actually if you've got clients that are using a bookkeeping application that aren't going to be building the MTD filing capability themselves. I certainly had a number of clients that had Weird and Wonderful software, often from the US, that actually worked really well for their business because it tied into perhaps their selling systems, invoicing systems, whatever it might be. And they would be reluctant to make a change because of how tied in their business is to it. But as long as we can export the income and expense details from that package, then we could file the MTD for it to return using our business filer software. So
So,
yes, that will be available.
An emphatic yes. The bridging software will be available for those who want to use it, and will be available. It's essentially ready. We're waiting to release it on the grounds that the rules keep changing. So, okay, let's move on. Thanks for covering that. So we've looked there at the digital record keeping side of things and got some ideas on what the options are. But the other side of that is the submissions. So over to John and Lorraine. I mean, are you guys going to be doing the submissions for everyone? Is it in that, John, you are?
I mean, yeah, the intention is that we want to do as many of the submissions for our clients insofar as, and again, I think this is where VAT and ITSA differ, right? So for the vast majority of clients who maybe did their own VAT returns, the single biggest thing for them was this maybe either a transition to software that was MTD compliant or a move on to a piece of software to enable them to file VAT returns rather than going through the old portal. Now, for ITSA clients, right, the reason we've got ITSA clients affected is because we're doing their return for them already. They are not doing it themselves, and they rely on us to prepare that information at the year end at the moment based on however they're getting that information to us. So we genuinely think that a considerable majority of clients will want us to do the quarterly filings on their behalf, and that was where I was sort of alluding to that sort of 70-80% of clients that we think will be comfortable with us doing it rather than doing it themselves, because I suppose for them there's potentially a compliance risk, or there's a risk of maybe getting it wrong and everything else. So that's definitely our intention. I mean, in an ideal world we'll get 100%, but it's not an ideal world. We know that we won't get 100%, and cost will be a factor in that. Certain clients will not want to pay, let's say, 4 times the cost for us doing 4 times the amount of work, if you like, for those submissions. So that's a challenge, and that's an area that we're still trying to just thrash out exactly what our appropriate pricing structure should look like, so that we are getting value for money on both sides, because price is relevant on both sides, right? We don't want to be overpricing our service and put lots of clients off. We don't want to underprice it and make it a complete nightmare for our staff in terms of being unachievable. And so we've got to strike that right balance. But we also want to put off the chances, the last minute Henrys and stuff, who are always just the ones who sling us everything on the 30th of January and expect us to turn stuff around the next day. That's not going to be possible. It's not going to be scalable when we're into these quarterly submissions. So that's something that we really want to avoid happening. And that's part of the reason why we're interested in digital solutions. Those have got to fundamentally form part of that base, and that's where we're at the moment.
Okay. And Lorraine, what about yourself? Are you intending on passing all of that to clients?
We're going to offer the choice. So those who want us to pilot, they will have to pay us to do it. We're not doing it for free. We're not running a charity. But we will be offering training and support during 2023-24 in advance. So we're working on the original go live date, April 2023. So in the first year, we'll offer training for an affordable amount, and then we'll give them the choice. But from April 2023, they've got to pay monthly, they've got to have the bank connected, they've got to be on software, and then we'll either train them on it or we'll get it ready for us to do it.
Okay, but so some clients will retain that at their end?
Yes.
And how confident are you that that's going to work? Do you have sleepless nights about that?
No, I sleep well on a night. It's the client's problem. It's not my problem. I'm here to assist them. They can pay me to help them, or they can do their own. And what we'll probably do is the end of period filing, so we can check it as part of doing the tax return. Right, I see. Okay. Because I know you had some questions, and we could maybe address these later, but about the recognition of, if your clients are doing the filing, how you are going to be able to see that. And I mean, Dean, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, in our product at the moment, we have we have Practice Manager and the different work statuses that are very popular, so that you can filter your client list and see what accounts are outstanding, tax returns are outstanding, or what stage they are in the process. And yeah, we'd certainly be looking to replicate that for MTD for ITSA. I think Lorraine made a very good point, actually, that if you've got clients making their own filings and you're not making it yourself, you'll still want to track whether those quarterly submissions have been made, even if they haven't been made through TaxCalc or whichever software system you're using. So yeah, it's a very good point.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because we don't do that for our VAT clients. We don't track all of our VAT clients and make sure they file their VAT returns on time.
Don't you, John? I'm very surprised to...
Well, we could do for our cloud clients, but we've got lots of clients that aren't on cloud, and we can't track them all, and they don't give us agent access, so it's not possible to do that. So yeah, I mean, I think from a tracking point of view, my understanding is like most of the tax software will allow you to see what's going on with the quarterly submissions once that's opened up through the API. So I mean, that would be the way that I suppose that we would track that. I think the challenge on the quarterly submissions is going to be around quality and whether or not you're going to see changes going in and out of the system, and also part of one of the reasons we've not gone down the route of looking for bridging software is that the solutions we've chosen will provide all of the tax return information at the point in time of those quarterly submissions, not just the 3 boxes, the income, expense and net, and for us we see that it's going to be a time saving when we get to the end of period submission and the actual tax return point as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. We're always trying to look at the positives and the opportunities that MTD will bring, because I think there's always a lot of focus on the negatives and the problems and the hassle it will be. But yeah, if it does allow for all your self-employed or property clients, if that does mean that you have 90% of the information you need by the 5th of April effectively, then that should see you in good stead and be in a much better position than you are today, where you might not see any information until November, December, January, who knows? So yeah, it is a very good point. I haven't always been convinced that that there is much of a. I haven't really bought into the argument that it's not creating more work and that you're just dividing up the same work into 4 separate pieces. I don't think that's the case, but certainly the fact that you'll have the information much earlier than you might otherwise have done should be a big bonus for a lot of practices, and should ease that January rush.
Excellent. Okay, so so Lorraine, I mean, in your practice, how likely is it that you will be able to resist stepping in if your customers haven't made the quarterly submissions? Because I can't see you just abandoning them. I think you're going to get sucked into this.
I'll do what we used to do with some of the clients for VAT. So we used to text them, ring them, and chivvy them along, and explain that there'll be penalties and all the rest of it. So we'll probably do the same, but we've got to take a stand. We're not doing charitable work. So whilst there's no penalties, we're unlikely to step in, but we will chase them and offer help. And eventually, if they don't play ball, well, they get a resignation. They've got to go.
Take a hard line, but after a while. We will be talking about the client communication software very shortly, but I think also as a client, it's about how you communicate that to your client, I guess. It's making sure that they know what you're not doing and they know what you are doing. Yeah,
you've got to be firm. Yeah. And we're not here to be dictated to. We're here to assist them. So we're assisting them in their carrying out their duties.
I can't imagine you being anything other than. So I do. Cool. Thank you very much for that. So Dean, are there any questions you want to get on to?
Yeah, we've had lots of questions coming in, so I'm keen to put some of these to Lorraine and John. So we've got one here. Carla's highlighted a big concern for her. If a sole trader also has rental income, will this be able to file through one piece of software, or are they going to need 2 softwares and 2 separate filings? I'm guessing you've got clients like that. Lorraine, what are your thoughts on the solution for those types of clients?
It's a question I have myself. I do have some clients where we've got the trading, not very many, because I actually don't think it works very well. So we've got one client where we've got the property in with the trading and we just reported in other income. But I'm waiting to see what the software vendors are going to supply as a solution and see what HMRC system says you've got to file, because they're going to different places on your tax return. So, I'm not sure what the answer is, and I am waiting clarification on that one too.
Yeah,
Very good question.
I think from our point of view, we already know that if you've got someone in that place with a sole trader with a property and they're over that threshold, they've got 2 lots of submissions to make, and that's and most of the software houses seem to be handling that as two separate things. So certainly when we've had conversations with Free Agent, for example, we know that you'll have a sole trader subscription, you'll have a property subscription. How they handle that within that in terms of managing the cost and things, we're having discussions with them about, and again, that's part of the reason why we've gone down the route of considering Free Agent alongside Hammock and Xero, because we also know that Hammock will integrate with Xero going forward into the future. So from our year-end point of view, in terms of doing that overall reporting and stuff, that'll be a bit more easily managed for us. But yeah, it's a pain, isn't it? And I mean, like the thing is, like you can sort of, I don't know, almost fantasize about all of the iterations that you can get, especially when you start bringing partnerships in another couple of years, because you can have all manner of complexity there, and that's where software really does help. And again, one of the reasons we've not chosen spreadsheets, because we just feel that look, we're accountants, we're great on spreadsheets, right? But some of our clients aren't, and if they're not going to get those property ownership splits and the income splits right, it's going to cause all manner of problems going forward.
Yeah, really good points, John. We've got another question here. If your practice is using different softwares, QuickBooks, Xero's bridging software, Free Agent, Hammock, how do you track what system all your different clients are using and sort of keep on top of that?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, it's got to be something that you hold in a central database, and practice management would seem to be the most sensible place to hold that. We've been through this process twice now. We did it for VAT, where we got what was a spreadsheet at the time, and of all of our clients and what systems they were on to make sure they were compliant. We'd then subsequently rolling that forward and do that is now in practice management for us and manage within there. I think that's kind of the only place you can do it, unless you want your own great big spreadsheet. But we all know that what happens with spreadsheets in practice is that someone maintains it, it gets put on a server or a file somewhere, and then someone forgets about it, and 2 years later you've got to pick it up again. I think that's where we're at, and and I suppose from our point of view, really, what we just need to know that we've got clients on the right solution. As Lorraine sort of alluded to, is once you've got past the point, it's like we're not there to manage the deadlines. That's HMRC's job. We're not there to manage non-compliance. That's HMRC's job. We're not there to dish out the fines and the penalties. We're there to provide information and support and a little bit of cajoling along the way to get our clients to be there at a compliant point of view. But in the same way that we try and make sure that our clients meet the 31st of January deadline at the moment, if they don't meet it, it's not our problem, right? It's our problem we've had the information and not done something with it. But if they haven't provided us with the information, it's not our problem and they get a penalty and they miss the deadline, and we'll try and fix it after the fact. And there may well be a premium price, or there may not be a premium price to that. The MTD for ITSA is not going to change the approach to dealing with that. It's just that it seems that HMRC have placed the onus in terms of education and communication on accountants, not on themselves.
Yeah. And Lorraine, I think that kind of leads on to another question we've got here that Ian's pointed out, that the biggest problem for a sole trader accountant is having time within that 1 month turnaround to the deadline to process all that work. What are your thoughts on that, and how you're going to manage that 1 month turnaround for all your clients for those quarterly filings?
Well, you need a team. Well, our team, we have one Rottweiler she's on the case. So people who the client she has, they finish their work in the first week. And then you have some people who are middle of the road, and we have a different person who looks after those, and another person who looks at the month end, which are the last minute ones. And which is why we want to go down the route of training some of the clients. We don't want all the extra work. So if we've got the clients doing it and they're quite competent to do it, not all of them will be, then we all win and the work's spread out. And we're not going for, you've got to have every piece of paper in, you've got to have every receipt in. We're looking at it as being, Lenny from HMRC said it hasn't got to be perfect. So we're not going for 100% perfection. We are going for, it's just about right. It looks reasonable. And then we'll use the year end to actually capture if there's any minor discrepancies. So.
I see. Okay. Wonderful. So we better crack on because we've got a couple more elements to go through, and you segue nicely into that, Lorraine. So we need to talk about the EOPS, the finalisations. Lorraine, I've got to guess at what you're going to do. You alluded to it earlier. So your plans for completing that, and how's your process looking?
Well, it's just going to run the same process that we run for the tax returns, except we are hoping that because we're doing quarterly returns, they're going to be done much sooner. So we're going to be looking at the ones that are straightforward, and we're not waiting for a mortgage interest statement or something like that. They can be done straight away, and the tax returns should be done earlier. The client will know how much tax to pay, and that'll be done. And then the other ones where we're waiting for final bits of information, again, they'll probably be done throughout. So we're going to be looking at capacity planning and maybe allocating time slots. So at the moment, the option is maybe use Calendly and allocate the time slots so that people know when their tax return is going to be done, giving them a deadline of the final bits of information, and hope that works. And it'll be like everything else. The first year will be chaos, and then it'll settle down, and then it'll just improve incrementally each year. So we're not worried about it, to be honest. It'll all, it always turns out all right in the end. So okay. That's what we're praying for.
I love the attitude of just fingers crossed. And so you'll be doing this through TaxCalc, and that's your single point of that's your main record.
It is. It's our primary control of what tax returns need doing, and also we have on there which software they're using. So all of our limited companies are on QuickBooks. Most of our sole traders are on QuickBooks. There's just a couple of little legacy ones. We've got 2 legacies on Sage, and then we've got the landlords, which we didn't see coming. We didn't see that part of MTD until the announcements came out. So that came as a bit of a shock, which is why most of our landlords are the ones that are left to do. But yeah, I think there's a lot of worry and concern, and I think it will not be as bad as people are expecting it to be. And we're just going to use our TaxCalc practice management. We've got reporting facilities on it. We've got extra fields in there. We can run any reports we want. We can filter them. So we will know what's outstanding. We've got a dashboard on TaxCalc, and we can see straight away how many clients we've got. We use it to filter into the AML. So everything's in one place. And that's why I want my dashboard for MTD ITSA in the same place. And I want a little icon with the counter on how many are left to do per quarter and the EOPs.
Right.
So just ask them again. Just make sure you know what I want.
I'm coding it right now as we're talking, so I can assure you that will absolutely be there, ready for MTD going live.
Yeah, so essentially, so the TaxCalc will pull down. We'll have a new version of TaxCalc that will, there'll be an MTD option where you'll be able to pull down all the data from the quarterlies and then build the tax return and the EOPS around, or the EOPS and the finalisation around that. So, John, what about yourself? Your processes, what technology are you using for the EOPS and the finalisation?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite similar to how Lorraine's going to do it in terms of, we're going to be relying on our tax software. So we use Digital for our practice, and we're going to be relying on that to make sure that we've got visibility of those quarterly submissions going in, and then that we can start doing those filings. And I mean, we'll already know that from using things like My Work Papers to manage the collection and management of deadlines on that quarterly basis for the clients that we're doing on our own, and then going forward from that point of view. I think one of the things that, and maybe it sounds like Lorraine's possibly doing the same, is that we're not going to be waiting until the MTD start point in 2024. We're actually going to start moving our clients into this new process, this new way of doing things. We're going to take advantage of the beta testing that's available out there, so that so that rather than having a big hit, like I say, we've got 1,200 clients we've got to manage. We don't want a big hit in April, in whatever it is, 18 months out or whatever. We want to be able to ease ourselves into this, because otherwise it's unmanageable. So we are going to be starting to move clients to quarterly preparation, even if we're not actually going to push a button and submit anything. We want them to get into this idea that they've got to start getting into this process and this routine of having things at least up to date on a quarterly basis, available for us to check if we're not going to be doing that bookkeeping side of things for them, ready for us to effectively push that imaginary MTD
So you're
button.
almost going through a kind of fire drill.
Absolutely, and that's absolutely the concept. Is that we know that we're going to have some difficult clients to move on to a piece of software or some solution. So we want to be able to get the ones that are easy, that we know are not always last minute. They're probably going to be the most amenable to be able to keep their records up to date, get to a point where they're compliant more quickly. So if we can start those early, and then it gives us more time to deal with the more challenging, more difficult ones, because we can get into them. Even though we're not going to move them onto that process, we can get into them earlier and start having that communication, start doing that education, and just sort of say, look, you can't put your head in the sand, you can't forget about this. And if that's your attitude, then fine, stick your head in the sand. You're going to be stuffed in 15 months' time, or whatever.
There you go. So, Dean, are there any more questions come through around this subject that you wanted to bring up? Or
no more questions. There is certainly some observations and some chat going on about how sole practitioners are going to be able to handle the additional workload in that tight turnaround, and whether there's anything they can do to help with that don't have the team to support them.
I think it's not just sole traders that are affected, right? We've got 250 people in our business, but we are stacked out. We are busier than we've ever been. I think coming off the back of COVID, I think every accountant that I talk to is busier than they've ever been. And so there is a capacity crunch in the whole sector. It's not just around small or large practices and what the differences are there. So this rollout for us over the next 15 months or so is going to be a challenge for us, and it's going to put some strain and some pressure on our team as well. But we kind of view that as an element of short-term pain for longer-term gain, if you like, in terms of if we can get to that point in time, as you mentioned earlier on. So if we can get to that point in time where actually that year-end final tax return process is being done earlier, being done a little bit quicker, then we've saved from that capacity crunch that we have in sort of December, January time, that we're all familiar with. So that's kind of Valhalla for us, if you like. Whether it plays out like that, we don't know. That's the reality of the situation, but that's kind of where we're getting to. And I would say, I know we're talking about technology. Technology does help with this process in terms of if you've got lots of clients on manual records, the bag and box jobs that people like myself grew up, studying and learning on, and how to reconcile a bank and ticking things off and stuff. You've got to move them onto a digital process. You've got to move them onto something, even if it is just a spreadsheet, right? You've got to move them there. So that helps you to ease the pressure and ease the burden on getting records in a way that's just a little bit more manageable.
Just on the note, what do you think if you compare doing the EOPS and finalisation, do you think it's going to be significantly faster than doing a traditional self-assessment?
I think the jury's out. At the moment, because we haven't been involved in the early betas of what's been going on with MTD for ITSA. And again, I think it depends on the solution. The reason that we went with the solutions we've got is that we feel that it will speed up the year-end process, because we'll be seeing more of that information on those quarterly returns feeding into the EOPS, feeding into the tax return. I think the challenge around some of the solutions on the market, if they're just giving you 3 lines of information, you're potentially going to be still in a position where you might have the records in digital format, but you're still going to have to get that into a tax return. Even if it's not in the EOPS, you're going to have to get it into a tax return. And I know for us, sometimes that's still a manual process for all of our technology and our digitalisation. And we want to get away from as much manual processing as possible. So genuinely, I think the jury's out a little bit, but my view is that it should be quicker and easier in the future.
Lorraine, what do you think?
We focused on trying to put more emphasis in the original documents and information. So we're forcing people, we are forcing people to get a bank account, a business bank account. So there's plenty to choose from, free of charge, get them on their digital bank account, and do things like, so if people are paying mileage, get them to pay the payment out of the bank and just use the reference, it was like 50 miles, and use auto coding on the bank feed to code it automatically. So it's removing a bit of the bookkeeping work. So we're trying to do it that way, make things simple, so that the figures just really do fall out and you've just got the odd queries to sort it.
So you're thinking that finalisation, the end bit, is going to be significantly quicker?
It will be for the trading bits. It's the other bits. So it's where you're asking for the mortgage interest statement, where they're not online.
Yeah.
Or credit card statements where they're not online. So it's where there's a break in the digital information, where people are waiting for things to come through the post. So we are looking with the clients to get digital solutions. So looking for a credit card that you've got an online portal that you can download a CSV statement for and import that. So we get the detail at the front end and not all in one lump at the end of the tax year. So that's our process, if you like. And the other thing is, if we've got somebody who's got cash intakes, working with them to do a process map of how the money comes in, how we record the sales, and make sure that the gross sales. So if somebody's selling on, I'll use Amazon, but it's not Amazon, but if they've got fees deducted, making sure that we've got the gross figure. And there's so many benefits that come out of doing this, because you can see when somebody goes over that threshold, when somebody's spent a huge amount of money, and you can capture that information earlier and trigger, if we're doing the bank recs, we'll check it then. And getting people on quarterly bank reconciliations. So either we do it or we train the client up for them to do it. And that's the key to, obviously good accounting records, doing a quarterly bank rec at least. So that's our approach.
And I mean, just to add to Lorraine's point, I mean, there are so many easy, simple options. If you've got clients that are on QuickBooks, on Free Agent, on Xero, where you do have traders selling through Amazon, for example, there are 3 or 4 really decent plugins to manage that process. Don't use the Xero Amazon integration, that's garbage, but use some of the other third parties that are out there. And as Lorraine said, you capture that information. One of the issues that we've had is, which is actually on landlords, is if you're using an agency to do that, you're getting your rent net, right? And so we're looking at information and going, well, is that gross or is not on net? And are we over the threshold or not over the threshold? And where do we draw the line in terms of, if they're receiving, I don't know, 9,000 net, and do we actually see what that is properly in our systems and see that they're actually over the threshold? The other point I would make is there's been a lot of talk about whether we should move sole traders and landlords to having business bank accounts or some kind of other bank account to separate things. We're not going down that route. We think that with the solutions we've got, we can identify and segregate the right things. And I think particularly landlords are the ones that are most challenging. But the key thing is to be aware of, that we talk about banks now as a generic term in the UK, and actually we have banks which are proper banks, which have the FSCS regulations and everything else that's tied up around them. Those are and a bank is someone that can give you a loan or an overdraft. And then there are e-money or wallet issuers. So the likes of Wise and some of the other products that people may well be familiar with. Now, if you're going to go down the route, and Coconut's one of these where they're not a proper licensed bank, if you're going to go down the route of those, there are limitations around what you can do with the money in terms of the volume and number of transactions you can make, the value of transactions that you can make, sometimes where that money comes from as well, and there can be challenges around that. So you need to have done a little bit of research around that, because you don't want to say to a sole trader or a landlord here, use this, and then if they sell a property, can't actually get the funds remitted to that account because there's a limitation on how much they can hold. That's a pretty fundamental problem, right, to overcome. So that's quite important to do a little bit of research around.
But you have decided not to push people towards the bank. You'd rather they did. It's not so it's really just because they don't necessarily want to, rather than for any other reason. Yeah,
I mean, in an ideal world, a sole trader and a landlord would have a separate account for recording those transactions. But there's enough change going on, and as easy it is sometimes to open a bank with Starling Monzo or whatever, or others. Actually, that's not the most fundamental challenge for us and our clients. The most fundamental challenge is around how they're going to adapt to a new piece of software, do the record keeping at an appropriate cadence for us in terms of doing the returns, and also at a reasonable accuracy for us to place reliance on it, and so that our input's minimal for them to minimise the cost.
Right. Okay. So, there's. Do you want to? Are there any questions that have come through, Dean, or do you want to crack on to the next section?
Yeah, no new questions. Some observations about whether our current Chancellor, new Chancellor, might scrap MTD altogether as part of a cost-saving exercise. I simply said we can only hope. But
We can only hope.
There's only a two-week time limit on a Chancellor nowadays, isn't there?
Yeah, which Chancellor?
Yeah,
basically.
for this month's legacy.
Could be next week.
Going to scrap MTD.
I mean, I just think from my point, apropos of nothing, is that there's not enough of a political dividend in them doing it, because no one knows about it. If everyone knew about it and was worried about it, then there would be a big political dividend in getting rid of it.
So as soon as HMRC finally launch their public comms plan,
They'll kill it.
That's when we can see.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to get political, though, I mean, HMRC are miles behind lots of other countries in terms of digitalisation, and we think that MTD is a massive pain in the backside, right? But actually the reality is that it's necessary, and I know that a lot of accountants don't want to hear that, but it is necessary for us to run a modern economy and a modern tax collection agency. You compare us to places like Brazil, which which most people might pour scorn on, and they are streets ahead of where we are. You can compare us to Estonia, where they have digital citizenship, let alone digital taxation. I mean, they are 20, 30 years further ahead of us.
Mind you, I lived in the US for some time.
And they're a million years behind.
They chip out a small...
They're still writing checks over there, so they need to get, need to get a grip on reality.
It's like Fred Flintstone sometimes over there. Okay, so we've got some people talking about, okay, what do I do if I don't have a team around me as well? And I think this last section, we're going to be talking about how you're going to manage deadline management and the client communication and automating that. And I think for those people, particularly if they're operating on their own, that's where you're going to get the most benefit here, isn't it? It's that automation of the process around chasing clients up. So, Lorraine, have you got systems set up, technology-based systems, or is it more process?
We're looking to, we've already enlisted on the communications element in TaxCalc.
Yep.
And we've been playing about with it and testing it because it's a new feature that we've added in. And you can create your own list. So we would pull out all of our sole traders into a list and our landlords into another list and make sure we're not duplicating with the two. And we can send out automated emails from TaxCalc using the comms section. So that's what we're doing. I've done a couple of trials and it works great. And it looks as if it just comes straight from me, from my email. It looks very personalised. So we're very happy with that.
Fabulous.
And it's in our main database, so we've already got the emails in there already, just perfect.
So you've automated using tech, and that's the communication centre with TaxCalc, which I'm fully approving of. Thanks for that.
I knew you would do.
Yeah, of course. John, what are you guys doing? Different perspective? Is it? I'd imagine you've got some tech, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we started our communication internally with our whole staff team. Way back in February this year. So, we've been talking about MTD for ITSA in terms of just building awareness with our staff internally for a while now, and that's been a mixture of we use Teams within the organisation, so a mixture of things that we've been pushing out there, and then we've started the newsletter process that's been going out to clients. So we use our MailChimp equivalent to send newsletters out to clients, and that's sort of talking to them. But our intention is actually we're going to go sort of relatively old school actually with tax returns. When we do them in January, or as we're starting to do them over the coming months, is we're actually going to send just a either a letter for some of those clients we're still writing letters to, or by email, just including more information about MTD for ITSA and warning them that it's coming up. And we're going to start tasking our staff as well, particularly in the tax department, to start opening up those communication channels and try to do a bit more one-to-one communication.
But what about the kind of the deadline management once we're in place? And
yeah. So when it comes to deadline management, as I said, we've got my work papers in place, which helps a little bit with that. Whether we take that on a step further, because we're currently sort of exploring very early stages at the moment, exploring the use of carbon potentially as a layer that would sit alongside our practice management solution, because our practice management solution doesn't have deadline management in there at the moment, or whether we go down an alternate route which may use something called Process Street, which is it's a sort of a process management tool for us. And within that, we can plug in various pieces of software. We can trigger events, and as things get completed, we can also trigger notifications, emails, and things. So those are sort of two sort of options at either end of the spectrum almost that we're kind of considering, but that's where we're at.
Okay, cool. Dean, what would you have you seen in the market?
I've seen all kinds of things in the market. And I think in terms of my former practice, I didn't have particularly robust systems. I managed with an Excel spreadsheet, as I know many of our customers do, particularly the sole practitioners, and the communications was pretty manual and ad hoc as well. So when it came to VAT returns, I'd simply have a list of all the VAT returns this quarter, and we would be manually looking at what email we sent the last quarter and resending it, so that we ask for the same things from the same people at the same time. And that's manageable to a degree for a small practice. But I think given the huge number of clients, or huge proportion of clients that are going to be brought into this in one hit, I don't think that would be robust enough for me now. So I would certainly be looking to be using the practice management software to lighten the load of that. And let's be honest, MTD for ITSA wouldn't be as big a problem as it is if it wasn't for the clients.
Yeah, damn clients.
You know, if they got the information to us when requested, then that 1 month turnaround wouldn't be such a problem. So I think as the more we can do to use technology to make sure that we're asking every client straight away every time, that we've got reminders in place, so that if we don't get that information back, they are asked again, and it's just not left to somebody to look at their to-do list to make sure that.
Yeah, it's that proactive interrogation and that visibility of who's done what that I'm hearing. So before we finish off, Lorraine and John, have you got any pointers, particularly around this communication side, for our viewers, of what they need to look for? What are the characteristics of the tools they need for deadline management and client reminders?
I think from my point of view, I think I mentioned before, HMRC seem to have taken a backseat in terms of communicating about MTD to the the people that are going to be affected by it. So I think our view is we just need to just get out there and start talking to all of our clients that are affected as much as we can, in as many different ways as we can. So like I say, newsletters, emails, picking up the phone, having conversations, webinars, all the options that we've got available at our disposal. And the reality is we'll come off the back of that and we still won't have got all of them. I can guarantee it. We still there'll still be a client who won't be aware. So that's part of the challenge. In terms of deadline management, I mean, I do agree with Dean to a degree, is that I think spreadsheets probably still do have a place for particularly for smaller practices, and we still have some spreadsheets internally within our firm, which I'm desperately trying to get rid of. But I mean that's one of the way that's probably one of the easiest ways to manage deadlines and to see that. I mean, if you're particularly sort of minded and you like a bit of tech and you like to play around, if you've got spare time, if you're using Google, the G Suite has really good API access. All of this stuff around deadlines for HMRC is all going to be opened up through their APIs, because that's how you guys are building your solution. That's how all of the practice management tools are going to be building their deadline management solutions. So you could tap into that, or you could use something like Airtable, which is effectively like a database model. Again, great APIs. You can plug it into products like Zapier to also send notifications and things. So you could do that as well, potentially. But you do have to have some skill around that, and I very much appreciate that we're talking about something that, for the vast majority of accountants, is like way out of their league. I think the key thing is, if you've got it in practice management, utilize that tool, make the best of it, but also process map. So a lot of accountancy firms, and again we're guilty of this, is we don't really appreciate the complexity of our processes, and what we do is we step back. We don't step back often enough to look at our processes, understand what's required, map those out, and then identify efficiencies, but also build them into a way of managing deadlines. I think that's really, really important for firms to do. Time consuming though, that's the challenge, and nobody has time, do they?
Not anymore. Lorraine, any pointers finally for our viewers on really any of the technology, but particularly around the deadline management and the client comms? What should they be looking for, and what should they prioritise?
We started our communications 2 years ago because we worked on the April 2023 and we were going to do it in April 2022. So we moved it back a year, but we're not doing it another year. I think the first thing is to let the clients know HMRC have sent nothing out. And as John said earlier, it's the accountants and bookkeepers who are passing that information on. So first of all, have a word with your clients and tell them an email, a letter, a newsletter, anything, but tell them, because if it comes and it's a bit of a shock to them, they'll just blame us. And then the second thing is give them some solutions. They trust us to guide them in the right way. So we give people 3 choices. Do you want to do, most of them are on QuickBooks, so it's straightforward. I just say, you're already ready. You don't need to worry about it. We're doing quarterly bank recs. You're all right. You're all sorted. The other ones are saying you've got to get on QuickBooks by April 2023. If not, if you don't want to pay for it, you're going to have to get another solution. Here are some sample prices of our side hustle, or we can help you find a new accountant. What's your choice? So,
there's the nuclear button at the end there.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. So, Dean, we are running close to the end of our extended session, which we predicted, but any questions that you want to bring up, or are we...
I'd like to bring up another poll, Andy, if I may.
I forgot your poll. Oh, dear.
Yeah, one final poll around the area of practice management. And it's really just a question to ask the attendees whether they are looking to actively implement a new practice management solution ahead of MTD for ITSA going live. There's a couple of no options and a couple of yes options. So no, happy with the spreadsheets for tracking work, and I'll carry on with those. Thank you very much. No, I'm not looking to implement because I've already got one and I'm quite happy with that. Yes, I'm going to implement one because MTD for ITSA will be a struggle without it. Or yes, irrespective of MTD, I'm looking to implement before April 24.
Okay, because it is interesting how much the oxygen, the debate around technology, the oxygen has been sucked up by that client use, which is understandable, the digital record keeping, but the practice management stuff is equally big in terms of the change that you're going to need to go through.
Yeah, and I think the solutions have evolved a lot over the past 5-10 years. I know when I had my practice and I was using spreadsheets, very early on I was looking for alternative solutions because I knew there were limitations, most notably when I started taking on staff and we're all opening up the same spreadsheets, and that's just prone to, I'd noticed clients have disappeared from my spreadsheet because someone's inadvertently deleted them, or work's been done and it's not been updated on the spreadsheet. There's a whole host of things that can go wrong, and I was always looking for alternatives, and back then I didn't think the solutions were good enough, or there weren't as many around, but it's certainly an area that's attracted a lot of attention. There are now lots of different solutions.
And I think some of the solutions that we talked about, Xero, QuickBooks, Free Agent, I'd be amazed if they don't build something into their sort of practice side technologies, or at least have a dashboard so you've got some visibility of deadlines as well. You kind of have that certainly in Xero for the VAT side of things, and there'll be more and more products that will come into the market. I mean, this or everything that's happening around MTD for all of the taxes is a bit of a free for all for software houses to get into the market and try and get something out there in front of people. So that's the biggest challenge I think for accountants, is like, how do you know that you've picked a really good solution, and yet do you have the time to appraise all of the solutions that are going to come into the market? And we're still a long way out before we'll see all of those solutions being available.
Absolutely. I mean, I was working with Accounting Web 20 years ago, and practice management was just the remit of big firms. Small firms didn't need or use or want practice management. So the poll results are in. We've had a lot of votes. Dean, what do you think? Is that what you expected?
I'm not sure it is what I expected. I mean, judging by some of the chat conversations that have gone on, there are a lot of small practices and sole practitioners on the call, but the highest vote to come out is yes, they are looking to implement because of MTD, and it'd be a struggle not to have something. So that's probably a higher proportion of people than I was anticipating. No surprise to see spreadsheets coming in a fast second.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously lots of people wanting to.
People are looking to take that on. Wonderful. Okay, fantastic. So we have come to the end of our allocated time. Are there any questions? Does anyone out there want to ask a very last question? Speak now or forever hold your peace, because we're going to have to leave. I don't think.
We have had a question on pricing, Andy, but I feel like that's a whole webinar in itself, and I think we're going to have one coming up on. We are working on a plan. The issue of pricing does come up relatively very frequently, frankly. We are going to be hopefully doing something very special with pricing, but I'm still working on that plan. But I'm looking to make it a much more interactive experience. But please keep tuned, stay tuned for news on that. And before we go, I would like to say we did have some 10k threshold questions come in as well, which I was so pleased that you didn't let me down on the 10k threshold. So you're going to personally respond to each of those after the session?
Each one, yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, look, we have run out of time. I thank you all very, very much for coming along and staying with us throughout, and all of your comments. Thank you very, very much to Lorraine Ellison. It's wonderful to see you, and congratulations on the recent wedding as well. And thank you very much, John. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and thank you very much for your input today too. And thanks, Dean. Always with me.
Cheers,
on the side. Thank you. Wonderful. Well, we will be back in a few weeks. We've got a special webinar that we're going to be running in November, which is around moving from other systems to TaxCalc and understanding how that process worked. That's on the 16th of November. Keep an eye out for that. But apart from that, we will see you then, and I'll leave you now. Thank you.